Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. I am creating this tutorial because several of my students enrolled in my How to Build a Computer class on Udemy have asked how to install various versions of Linux on a computer. So I'm going to start with showing you how to install Linux in VirtualBox because there are several distros of Linux and you may not be sure which one to use. And the easiest way to test out multiple operating systems is to use a virtual machine. So to get started with VirtualBox, just type in VirtualBox into a Google search, and the first link that comes up should be to virtualbox.org. And since we have Windows, we are going to choose VirtualBox for Windows hosts, and this should download both the 64 and 32-bit versions. And then for Ubuntu or any other Linux distro you want to try out, just go ahead and do the same thing, and I'm going to type in Ubuntu, and I'll go to ubuntu.com, and then we're going to choose for desktop, download Ubuntu. And take me to the download. Alright, there it goes. And this is 1.4 gigs, so that might take a bit of time. But for now, we'll go ahead and get started with the VirtualBox installation. Alright, so I'm going to hit next. And then we're just going to hit next. Create shortcuts, register file associations, yep. Alright, so this is going to temporarily disable our network, but we'll just go ahead and hit yes. Install. So just go right through the installation. This once we open up VirtualBox and create our first virtual machine, that's when we'll need to switch up some settings, maybe. We'll see. But alright, go ahead and hit finish, and then it should start right away. Alright, here it is. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit new. And then what we're going to do is we are going to set up this virtual machine for Ubuntu. So we're going to go Linux, Ubuntu 64-bit. And if you're not sure which processor you have, which architecture, if you're on Windows, you can right-click the Windows button and then go to System. Where is it? System. And then it'll say right here, so I have a 64-bit operating system because I have a 64-bit-based processor. So close out of that. And then I'm just going to name this Ubuntu. You can name it whatever you want. Hit next. And I'm going to stay out of expert mode because there are more settings in VirtualBox, but we can just do the quickest setup. Alright, so for memory size, this may vary for you depending on how much RAM you have available. So I have 8 gigs of RAM installed on this computer, and Ubuntu actually recommends, I believe they recommend 2 gigs. Let's see. So yeah, they recommend 2 gigs of system memory, and you really don't even need that much, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do, I believe it's 2048 megabytes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And then the memory size will also vary depending on how many virtual machines you have running, because you can run, obviously I'm on my physical machine right now, which is running Windows 10, and you can have multiple virtual machines running, so you may want to allocate wisely based on how many virtual machines you'll be running at once. But I'm just going to assume you're going to be running one virtual machine because you'll want to try out whatever version of Linux you may want to download. So, yeah. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and create a virtual hard disk right now. And I'm just going to use VDI. This is the disk storage, the hard disk type that was designed specifically for VirtualBox by Oracle. So I'm not going to mess around with that. VDI should work just fine. Hit next. And then this setting, dynamically allocated versus fixed size. Fixed size will automatically save however big of a hard drive you need, whereas dynamically allocated will only create the hard drive, will keep up with how much space you're using and then cut it off once you hit your limit. So fixed size can be slightly faster, but I'm just going to go ahead and do dynamically allocated. That way I'll use the bare minimum hard disk space for this virtual machine. So I'm going to hit next. Alright, and then I'm going to, Ubuntu recommends 25 gigs. Once, we won't need that much space, but I'll just do it anyway. I have plenty of hard drive space anyway. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Okay, and this virtual machine should be good to go. So now we're just going to wait on our Ubuntu download, and this will take varying amounts of time depending on your network. My network's actually going a bit slow. Oh, actually, it's going faster than I thought it would. But I will resume this video once the Ubuntu download has completed. Alright, so our Ubuntu ISO file is finished downloading, so now we're all set to go ahead and start the installation on our virtual machine. So I'm going to double click on our Ubuntu virtual machine, and then we need to select a disk for startup. So we are going to choose the ISO file we just downloaded. Let me go to downloads, there it is, hit open, start. Alright, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Here we go, full screen mode. Alright, and right off the bat, you actually have the option to either try Ubuntu or install it. So we could try it, but I'm just going to go ahead and get straight to the installation. Since this is a virtual machine, we're not making any permanent changes to our hard drive. So I'm going to go ahead and hit install Ubuntu and pick whichever language you're going to be using. I'm going to download updates while installing, and then I'm not going to install any third-party software because we're not going to need that. You may want to do that if you know you're going to stick with Ubuntu. And since the disk currently has no operating system, let's go ahead and erase disk and install Ubuntu. Hit install now. And then it's going to automatically format the partitions for us. Hit continue. And the great thing with starting with the virtual machine is you can't mess up your hard drive. You can't accidentally erase Windows. You can't destroy any data on your hard drive. This is just a virtual machine, so you can feel free to experiment with anything in the installation process as well. Alright, I'm actually on the West Coast, so I'm going to hit continue. English. You can choose your keyboard layout. Alright, and then I'm going to choose my computer name. I'll just do Joe-VirtualBox, Joe, and I'll do a easy password that I don't have to remember. Continue. Alright, so my installation just completed. It took about, 2 minutes to install everything and then update while installing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit restart now. Alright, for some reason it was frozen on the Ubuntu loading screen even though we had finished the installation and unmounted the ISO file from our virtual drive. So to do this, if it's not unmounted, you need to unmount the ISO file because it's going to try to boot off it, which is the installation, and we already installed it. So all you do is, let me actually get out of this view. All you need to do is go to devices, optical drives, and if this is selected, you'll have the option to remove disk from virtual drive. So we removed it, and we reset our machine. So all you do is go to machine and then press reset. Let me go back to full screen. Alright, and this is Ubuntu. So I'm not going to actually dive into any of the features just yet. I still want to show you how to install Ubuntu alongside your primary operating system. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Alright, so let's continue with a physical installation alongside our primary operating system, in our case Windows 10. So to do this, we're going to need three things. One, the ISO file we already downloaded, the Ubuntu ISO file. We're going to need a USB. I would recommend using at least an 8 gigabyte USB stick. And we're going to need a piece of software called UNetbootin. And what UNetbootin will allow us to do, it will allow us to create a live USB drive, which is basically burning the ISO file to the USB, which we can then run the installation off of when we boot up our computer. So let's go ahead and start by going to unetbootin.github. And then we're going to download this for Windows. And it should download pretty quickly. It's a pretty small file. Alright, so go ahead and open that up. Okay, and before we do anything in the program, we're going to go ahead and insert our flash drive. Alright, I think this flash drive already has Ubuntu on it. So anyway, I'm going to assume your flash drive is either blank or has miscellaneous files on it. Now, we're going to have to reformat this flash drive. So make sure you remove everything from it, because this is going to wipe everything. What we want to do is we want to right click on the Windows icon, and then we're going to hit Disk Management. And then this disk 0 is going to be what your primary, this is your primary hard drive. This is what your operating system is on. This is what all your files and programs are on. And disk 1, or if you have multiple hard drives, or maybe disk 2, disk 3, this should be your flash drive. And you can tell based on the size. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. This currently is formatted for Windows, NTFS. We need to format it for FAT32. So we're going to right click, hit Format, yes. And then you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to actually name it Ubuntu. And then for file system, go ahead and hit FAT32. And make sure this is selected, perform a quick format, or else it'll take quite a while to complete a full format. And then we're going to hit OK. And make sure everything is off it, everything you need, before hitting OK. And this shouldn't take too long. Okay, so it's all done. We can close out of disk management. Go ahead and pull out the USB, the flash drive, and put it back in. Go ahead and close out this window. Alright, so now we are going to click Disk Image, and we'll select the ISO file. So it should be in our Downloads folder. Here we go. Alright, type USB drive, and then if you don't see the actual drive, just go click this drop down menu, click hard disk, and then go back to USB drive, and that should be it. And just to make sure, you can go back to disk management, and then you can see it is disk E, or drive E, so we're all set. So then go ahead and hit OK, and I'll go ahead and resume the video once this is completed. Alright, so UNetbootin has finished the installation process, and we now have a bootable live USB drive to install Ubuntu with. So the next step is to restart the computer and boot from USB in the BIOS menu. But for me to do that, I'm actually going to have to switch up my recording setup a little bit. I need to switch over from Camtasia to a capture card, since we won't actually be in Windows, and I'll need to just be able to capture the raw video feed. So I will see you in the next video. One last thing we want to do before we get started with the Ubuntu installation is disable fastboot. I believe Windows started using fastboot with Windows 8. But anyway, we're using Windows 10. And fastboot enables a computer to start up much faster than it normally would for a hibernation or sleep. And this can interfere with data transfer. So we don't want to have any issues with the installation. We don't want to have any issues transferring files between the hard drive when we're on Ubuntu versus when we're on Windows. So let's just go ahead and disable fastboot real quick. So you can get to this option if you have the power button, the power icon down in the toolbar, or you can right click on the Windows icon and then you want to go to control panel. And if you're in the category mode, just go ahead and go large icons and then hit power options. And then you want to go to change what the power buttons do, and then change settings, and then uncheck this box. So I already had it unchecked. Go ahead and uncheck that. Save changes. And then we're all set. I'll see you in the next video. Alright, so let's get started with the installation alongside our primary operating system. So I'm going to go ahead and restart the computer. And as this is resetting, I'm hitting F2 to get into the BIOS because I need to change the boot priority. So right now, my computer is set up to automatically boot to my primary hard drive. So the primary hard drive which has Windows on it. So as long as this is the case, the computer will continue to boot into Windows. So we need to change it so that the boot option number 1 is on the flash drive. And as you can see, SanDisk is my solid state drive, primary hard drive, and then the PNY drive is the flash stick that we're using to install Ubuntu. So let me just change the boot priority real quick. And we're going to hit F10 and save changes, and now we'll boot into using the flash drive. So we're going to go ahead and install Ubuntu. And the entire installation process should look just like the installation process for when we did it with the virtual machine. So there's really nothing new outside of how we allocate the partitions on the actual hard drive, but you'll see in a sec. Oh, and the window's actually on my other monitor, so I need to drag it over. Here we go. So we're going to go ahead and use English, and we'll hit continue. Alright, and this time around, I'm going to go ahead and download updates while installing like before, and install third-party software. Okay, and for this, we're just going to go ahead and hit go back because we still want to be able to boot into Windows. Alright, and this may take a moment. Okay. So we'll go ahead and install Ubuntu alongside Windows 10. This is just going to be a quick install. You can do all sorts of other things, but we're just going to do the easy, quick way. And with this bar, you can drag based on, so that's the maximum partition we can do for Ubuntu. Our hard drive's pretty full. So I think I'll do 20, yeah, I'll just do 20 gig installation. Hit install now. So you can do the partition as large as you want for as much space as you have on your hard drive. In the setup files or on the website, they recommend 25 gigs, but you don't need that much. You could do it with as few as 10. You don't need that much space. It just depends on what you want to do with Ubuntu. So if you want to download a bunch of software and really start using it and getting to know it, then you might need more space. But if you just want to play around with terminal, practice with commands, you don't need to allocate that big of a partition to the Ubuntu files or for Ubuntu. Alright, so I think I'm going to pause this video. I'm not sure how long this will take, and then I will resume it once we've gotten to the next step. Alright, so we're back. Just choose our location, our time zone, English keyboard, and then choose a name for our computer. Do Joe-Linux, and then quick password. Hit continue. Alright, so it's going to continue to copy some files, and we'll be right back once the installation is complete. Alright, so go ahead and click restart now, and what the computer will do is it will immediately reboot using the USB. So from here you can either unplug the USB, hit Control plus Alt plus Delete, and then it should boot into Ubuntu. But I'm going to actually go back into the BIOS and change my boot priority around again. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into Ubuntu. So if you notice from the bootloader menu, there is not an option to re-enter Windows 10. So there's a quick fix for this. Go ahead and enter in your password. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and search the computer and enter terminal. And we're going to type in sudo, sudo space, grub, update-grub. Hit enter and then type in your password. It won't show you the actual letters or characters. And then what this will do is it updates the bootloader to show Windows 10 as an option. So we're going to go ahead and restart. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Restart. And there's Windows 10. So when I first started using Linux, this actually scared the crap out of me. I had no idea how to get back into Windows 10, and that's where all my work, and I wasn't in school, all my work stuff was. But here we go, we're back to where we started. So in the next video, I'll go ahead and show you guys how to remove the Linux partition from your computer. Alright, so last but not least, I'll show you how to remove the Linux partitions from your hard drive. So you may have gotten to a point where you realized Linux wasn't for you, you weren't using it, and you needed to free up some additional space on your hard drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the Windows icon. We're going to once again go to Disk Management. And then we're going to first identify the Linux partitions. So we started with these two NTFS partitions. These are for Windows, and then a healthy recovery partition. So that's what we started with, these three partitions. So these two partitions are for Linux. So we're going to go ahead and right click, hit delete volume, delete the partition, and then we're going to right click on this partition and hit delete volume. So before you get started, you want to make sure and take a screenshot, take a picture with your camera, your phone camera, take a mental snapshot, make sure you identify the partitions that are necessary for Windows, and then by process of elimination, you'll be able to identify the Linux partitions. Alright, so now with this free space, we can hit delete partition, hit yes, and then it will become unallocated with this black bar on top. Then from here we can right click on the C drive, hit extend volume, then we're going to hit next, and we're going to hit finish. Voila, and we're now back to where we started. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. I hope it made the whole process of installing Ubuntu alongside your primary operating system a little less scary. You could see all the steps. You can see my computer's still here. I still have Windows. I didn't delete anything. But I would advise you to be very careful when partitioning within the disk management. As long as you don't wander off into the advanced partitioning settings and you just stick with the quick installation, you should be perfectly fine. So once again, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I'll see you in a future tutorial.